Just when you thought you could go to the bar early today, I'm back. So apologies for that. At one point, I had 3 of me on my screen, and I told Tech Guy he did not want that to happen. So we had to jump out and revisit. So we'll start in about a minute. Yay, Claudia's on board. We'll have to make sure that the folks who were in before were able to get back in. Okay. I have a comment by a Facebook poster, but I don't have Tech Guy's phone yet to see who it is, but that you saw the replay and you got the feedback. Excellent. And you still came for more grief here. Jan actually wants more grief. Someone, and I don't have his phone yet, so I can't see who Facebook users are, but they're happy to be back after having missed day 2 and 3. Yeah, there's a lot of information that's coming through here. And remember that we're only looking at 5 points, and we're trying to get a big picture snapshot of your story and how it's holding together and what might be problematic for you. Nothing anybody posts is wrong per se. You're here to see how to improve possibly. Okay, so any feedback is yours to take and use in any way that you can. So as soon as Tech Guy gets me the phone so I can see who's asking questions, I think he went to the bar early, we'll officially get started. Now, the way today is going to be structured, we're going to have the lecture, and I'm going to keep it down to less than 30 minutes. Then we're going to have a couple of examples of yesterday's homework, just 3, I think, this time. And I try to pick different people every day. And then we're going to look at, for those who are interested, again, we're only looking at 5 points here, but there's a month-long class. So it's not quite so, oh my God, I have to think so much about my plot in one day type of situation, and spreading it out with all sorts of fun goodies. Honey? Well, I'm just going to assume that his phone. Okay, so his phone isn't working. So now I'm working on 2 computers. All right, Melissa is saying she can't see or hear anything. Can you double check with her and see? All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started here. And I appreciate those who have, oh, I don't know if Melissa is saying. So Corrine can hear me. So it's something on Melissa's end that might need to. And so he's working with her. So closing out, coming back in is a good way to first deal with that. All right, so let's get started on day 4 out of 5. Again, back to our mountain. We've already covered the opening of the story and that first plot point. Okay, that first plot point where if you are writing a romance, it has to be about the romance, not something else. So if you're writing about something else, that they took a job or they went somewhere or they did something and stop at that point, I'm going to assume it's not a romance, and that's fine. The second plot point or the midpoint of your story, this is where the risks increase. Now, there were one or two of you that I was concerned that the risks that you had in your first plot point were so high that leading into it increasing the risk at the second, if they're life or death in the first plot point, that's kind of a hard thing to increase the risks. So that was my number one concern that I was seeing with that second plot point. But today we're going to the top of the mountain. So this will be your, not the Zen experience, but it's going to the black moment. One of the functions of the change that happens to your characters in the middle of the story, though it could start earlier than that, but it's that there's time to develop, that for the reader to see that this relationship could really work. They really belong they belong together. So we need some of that time period where they can get to know one and each other, because that makes the plot point that much more dramatic and emotional. Jade, the earlier request for us to sign out, I signed out, but Tech Guy was working with somebody, with Melissa, I know in particular, to do that, reminding her to sign out.
Jade may need to close out of Facebook and then restart.
So Jade, okay, she's okay now, honey. All right, so we're good to go. So here we are back at our mountain, and you can see that the story, this is why conflict matters in the story. So people who are indicating in the first plot point or even the second plot point that everything is fine and hunky-dory, that basically means the story is over once everything's fine and hunky-dory. Now, I realize that it's because I've asked you to try to keep things really tight. But if I raise a question there at the midpoint about if it's all over and everything's okay, are you going to have a black moment? So I'm assuming when you're saying that, you're just trying to let me know that no, at this point in the story, it looks like they can go forward with the relationship, but there will still be a black moment. Again, this is simply a different way of looking at it, because some people have an issue with the mountain. So this is a continuum to show you, start where the inciting incident, see, it's very close to that opening, that first plot or twist point, and how it starts changing. If you have a romance, it has to impact both romantic characters. Then to the midpoint of the story, I'll try and get through more of the homework assignments today, as well as start into the homework assignment for that black moment. Okay, so I know it's been challenging, but you're doing it, and that's really, really good. Now, when we talk about that third twist point, the black moment or the climax, if you're writing non-romance, why the black moment matters and what it reveals to readers. Now, this is the specific action that occurs roughly about 3/4 of the way into your story, and it can involve multiple scenes if you're writing a novella or something short, or multiple chapters if you're writing longer. Because this is that last, what are these characters willing to do to hang on to love that matters? It's not so much about what's tearing them apart, though something is going to tear them apart, either that internal fear from earlier in the story that you pointed out, or for some, it's an external event that's going to pull them apart. But what it is how much are they willing to fight for it? because that's what the reader wants to see. They want to see that someone just doesn't shrug their shoulders and go on the way. Ariana is asking, does the risk increase the deeper they fall in love, the more they commit and see a future together? Absolutely. Because at the first plot point, both can kind of go their separate ways and they haven't changed. At the second plot point, they have committed to a certain degree. And if they go their separate ways, it's going to be more of an impact on each other. But at the black moment, if they go, this is where heartbreak occurs. This is where they thought they had love, and it does tear them apart. So yes, each of these plot points increases the risk. Now, the function of this particular plot point is, again, to show the readers that even when things get really rough for the characters, that they thought they had love, they thought they could trust, they thought they could commit, but something goes wrong, that the story is not over. Now, if you're used to watching European films, for example, in African films, wherever, oftentimes those films will stop at this black moment. They will stop with no resolution. And that's more a literary feel to a story. So be aware of that. If you have access to and watch and enjoy a lot of foreign films, don't be surprised that there isn't this last after the black moment. How do they pull it back together again? Now, the type of speed bumps you're going to find is that there's no choice, there's no decision, and there's no clear, specific action on the page. And I love how for each other you're catching that. Because again, as writers, we're in our head, we think it's obvious, and I'm limiting you to a short, specific, write this information, but not all the rest of the information. So that can be problematic for some writers. But if it's missing, I or someone else will call you out on it, because while it's clear to you, it's not clear to the reader. Something just happens to your character. And this is, again, works fine in literary stories where are episodic and things are just kind of tossed at the character and then they have to react, but not in commercial fiction. That makes them a very passive character, and the reader kind of sitting twiddling their thumbs waiting for something to happen. But we only wait so long. Because the character is not driving their story. Forgetting that this point is based on your inciting incident way back when at the beginning of the story, and that's why we went over it multiple times, is that inciting incident raises a question. Then you get some time, some page space to explain why acting on that question or not acting both have ramifications, so that by the time you get to the 25% of your story where that first twist point is, that the reader is with the character, understanding if they walk away or understanding if they hesitate to get involved with another. Another potential speed bump is not making it clear that there are risks to the character and the relationship if you are writing a romance. Now, if you're writing a mystery with strong romantic elements, you are going to have risk to both. But in a romance, it's all about this character because it's this character's opportunity to grow and change, to admit that they've been holding back or hesitant or fearful. Forgetting that the action taken here is a direct result of twist point 1 and twist point 2, that midpoint in your story. Because the reader is following that. It is like watching a TV show and you're into the 3rd episode, and that 3rd episode has nothing to do with anything that went before it. So if it just comes out of the blue and it's like a big out of left feeling to it, that can be problematic. Remember, choice, decision, and action. I believed earlier that there was a question. I'm going back to it because this is the time. No, it might have gotten left. Because it was a question about how do you know, is it a real twist point? Well, you know it's a real twist point if there was a hard choice and an action that they would not have taken at the former twist point, but you also know it because it changes the relationship. So when people are writing that they're going to call somebody or they're going to send an email, that does not change the relationship because it is a step toward that. It's only until the two people are able to, unless they're on different planets, able to face come up against their fears. Because you can write an email and it can get them back together again, or it can tear them apart, but it's almost a coward's way out. So that's why it's about particularly that first one. If they've been avoiding each other and they just send a letter or an email or a telephone call, that's not enough of a risk. Now, here's some examples. Your main character can realize here at the Black moment, they realize they're getting too involved and they choose to walk away. This is why I pointed out to some people, if they're having that happen at the first twist point or the second or the second, it means that you're going to have to repeat something there. And it's like, been there, done that, what's changed? So that way the risk is staying kind of the same as it did earlier. Or your main character can be under an illusion about the romance, meaning they think that's as good as it's going to get, or they think I'm going to go back and prove I'm footloose and fancy free, or I'm going to prove to myself that I'm really not loving someone. I might care about them, but I don't really love them. Your main character encounters a version of their fear about the relationship, which you identified early in your story, and readers will remember it, such as betrayal or abandonment or whatever you have. So that's what triggers them to step away. It's because it's their own fears. But that your character is going to be given a last opportunity to risk for love. So they may step away at this point, but the reader who is reading the romance for a romance is going to be sitting there saying, get back together. Because it is that stepping back, is that risking for love, that revealing growth and change as a character. Your main character will assume the relationship is okay as it is, which means sex works, but I don't want anything more. And so we've had this, let's be okay with this, but that's all. But the character is actually hesitant to, they're reluctant, they're holding back from taking that real risk, which, boy, it's scary. Love is messy because you are so vulnerable to rejection, to misunderstanding, to someone not feeling as strong as you do. So here's our homework, and you will get a copy in the file section. So you go to the home page in a group, go up to the media file, and then go to file, and you'll see the homework. So the first part of this homework is revisit your midpoint and restate it. The reason we're asking that is to make sure it's tracking from that point, even though other stuff has happened, it's tracking from that point to 3/4 of your way into your story. The second part is re-clarify what your character feels can happen if they choose to risk. This is where you revisit the fear you've already established back at the beginning. Now, I know some people who signed in late or didn't get around to it have done that first homework, but I have not gotten to it. I may not get to it because if you look at the number of postings, and each assignment sometimes can have multiple postings to it, in that consider this, and somebody does a repost, and this almost works, but go back, that type of thing. So think about that fear right from the beginning, way back in their ordinary world, their everyday world. What made them hesitate to even want to have love? Or if they did want love, they got love with the wrong person. What is Bridget Jones' Diary, the first movie? That's what that was about. She wanted love, but she fell in with the guy that was like the other guys that she knew, and he was a charmer, and it was wonderful, etc. But the good guy, Mark D'Arcy in the story, she did not look at him until after the midpoint of the story. The third part of the homework is write 1 to 2 sentences of what the black moment might involve. So base this on your 2 previous twist points. You don't have to add both of them in, but look at them. Identify what happens to cause this character to reject or believe their love is not enough. So here's some examples. Since she slept with the hero, she thought their relationship may have a future. Now it's all in her head, but she hasn't been willing enough to actually say something to him for fear of rejection or that risk. So then she gets up to the point that he is walking away or going off on a mission or a sales something, and she's devastated because he's not saying the words that he doesn't know she wants to hear, and she's not saying the words that will let him know how she feels. So here's another example. Her early fear concerned abandonment, and a lot of your characters had this fear. So in the black moment, she hears rumors that he's leaving the company and thus leaving her. Her sense of abandonment tells her she's been a fool to think he cared about her. So she goes to worst case scenario in her mind without even finding out that he was not leaving the company, but he turned that job down, or he was offered that job, or he was going to a different city to check it out to see if both of them could work there. But she doesn't give him a chance to do that yet. So again, post your homework to the Facebook. I know there's a lot of homework 1s and 2s that I haven't gotten through, and even more of 3s, but I'll be working on those today and starting into 4s tomorrow so that you'll have them, as many as I can do. But look at the feedback others are given, because they can be just spot on. Bonnie, you said that your main character will assume the relationship is okay. That's one option, as it is with sex, and hesitates or reluctant to take a real risk. What about if it's a sweet romance? You see, that's why it is only one option. It's an example. It is not every story has to have that assumption. But since there's a large percentage of romances with sex in them, that's why I use that example. So it can be a totally different reason for your character. And if I gave a reason for every single one of your characters here, the likelihood I'm going to miss some. So this is just to give you an example for those that have sex in their book, that this could be one of those things at the middle of the story, and they got together sexually, that they thought it meant a future together. Okay, hope that helps there. Now, here's some examples. I think I just picked 3. And this is coming from Jan. 10 years after fleeing her hometown, Kelly is offered an assignment that would require her to return. This is the inciting incident. And her fear involved meeting her previous love interest that betrayed her. And so the first twist point is she arrives to begin work and discovers the man she most hoped to avoid is her assigned liaison for the duration of her stay. And that's going to change, because now these two have to kind of work together. Close contact with Matt brings back old feelings of attraction. And when Kelly learns the truth of what happened 10 years ago, she realizes she misjudged him. Forgiveness is given and received at the second twist point, opening the possibility of love. Now, as long as her fears can still set up a reason that it can be problematic going to the middle, because right here you're saying, yep, they're together, all's good, all's great. This is kind of like in Pretty Woman. It's in the midpoint of the story. She feels humiliated in a public venue because the hero told the lawyer that she was a prostitute, and the lawyer comes and hits on her, and she's upset with the hero. They go back to their hotel, and this is a guy who doesn't make mistakes, doesn't share his emotions, etc. And so he tells her, fine, you can leave. And she's, okay, not a problem, I'm leaving. And he throws the money at her that she'd earned up to that point on her bed, and she walks out. When he sees that she left that money, and he knows that she is there for the money because it's going to keep her out of prostitution, he realizes how much he hit her or hurt her. So at that point, in the midpoint of the story, he apologizes, but his action is to take her to an opera, fly her from where they are, Hollywood, to San Francisco, where there's an opera. So this is where it looks like everything's okay. All right, here, Jan, I'm bringing that up. You want to make sure, and I'm sure you know this, but that opening the possibility of love means somebody still is going to hesitate, because that opening the possibility of love means that they can have some quality time together between now, middle of the story, to the black moment. But you don't want to totally erase their fears. And again, I know you know this, so I'm just mentioning it here for others. Another example, Ariana. Tyler's offered a job playing Mark's fiance for a week with a hefty payout. All right. So Tyler needs money. He's been living off the generosity of friends. So at that first plot point, he gets into the car, which means he accepts the job. Now, he is attracted to Mark. And risks telling Mark how he feels about it. But he does get in the job, and the risks what's going to matter. At the midpoint of the story, the second plot point, so the middle of the story, spending time together makes Tyler realize that Mark isn't as superficial as he thought he was, thus leading him to start to trust Mark with his feelings. Now, that's the problem here in this answer. So how do you show that he's going to start to trust? That's the piece that's missing, that specific action. So saying that someone is going to decide or think about it or making it a kind of a big, and I know this can happen if you haven't written the story yet, or you have written the story and you know a lot of other stuff is going on too. So go ahead and be specific here. And that's all it needs, is how does he specifically show that he's trusting Mark here in the middle of the story? Okay, Kelly, I won't forget yours. So this comes from Kelly. Inciting incident is the heroine is a wealthy rancher's daughter, and she's on a mission to help her troubled father in England. When she learns she has to have a husband to board the only sailing ship immediately to London. So the first plot point is she has to find that man, and the man, she finds someone who's going to get on the ship with her. But this is not the twist point. And it's not the twist, that's the first twist point. But here, what is the next twist point, meaning the third twist point, or the second twist point in the story, the midpoint? Duncan, the guy, though down on his luck, Duke, seeking a good pay date and way home, is a proud and honorable man with his own opinions about men, women, wives, husbands, and appropriate behavior on board ship. Okay, one, yes, shifted to his point of view, not hers. So stay with Vix's point of view. So what changes for Vix midway through the story? And I saw this changing point of view in multiple postings. So you stay in one person's point of view if that character is the one that's going to change the most. But if you start shifting back and forth between the two main characters, what happens is it's easy to get lost. The fact that we don't know what Vix is doing here at the midpoint of the story. We started with her. So want to review that point. This is just, he's doing stuff, as opposed to what hard choice, decision, and action does she take middle of the story? Okay, thank you, Kathy, for clarifying for Kelly her question about the periods. If you go to the right side of the page, you will start seeing that there are multiple ways people are using. Sometimes they're putting the number first and the EX afterwards, and then sometimes people are, it's pretty interesting. But it also means that not only do I have to go through the 76 of the first and the 46 of the second and the 20 some of the third, but I also have to double check that how are other people posting something that I might miss that they might need to find out about. So just a reminder for that. So Ariana worked, the feedback helped her. Excellent. That's wonderful. Now, these are the only 3 examples I'm giving on here. I'm already working on the posting, so I'll be working more on those today to get through them. But, so end of today's lecture and homework. But next, I have information for those who want more. So other people can go back and do what they need to do. But for those who, and I sometimes reference this, that there is more to a plot. There's more details, there's more stages, there's more information to make. And the biggest place that I see with it is between the opening or the inciting incident, which happens almost within the same area of the opening, and then all of a sudden jumping to the first moment. So that's going to be problematic. So what I want to talk to you about is what I created, because other than just these 5 points, which yes, it is big jumps between them. Next month, I'm teaching the whole month. What happens in between? So it's 4 weeks of information plus the minute you sign in, you get signed into a week. So it's basically 5 weeks of information. And it's more time to review the lectures and study the material because I'm using templates. So it's like me asking you questions, specific questions. And that way, it's not just one question, it's inciting incident. How do I verify it's an inciting incident? This is how. These are questions that you want to ask about it. There's 27 videos. Tried to keep them short to review, and as many times as you want at your own pace. Now, it's not just during the 4 weeks. You get to keep these. And there's weekly homework assignments like we're doing here, but spread out, and more assignments about different aspects of your story. Plus, we do a live Q&A review session. So questions that come up, you can post it to our live Facebook group that will be private, and you can ask me on the weekly. Those live Q&As are Saturday at noon, except for one Saturday. Lena, that's fine. We can make that work for you. So can you just text a message to myself or to assistant at Mary Buckham, and we can get you enrolled so you have your spot. And then come the 31st, we know, or the 1st, we know that you'll make either a payment, partially payment, or pay for the whole thing then. So that way you get the discount that we're going to give. Plus, you can start on the work immediately. Now, there are romance story structure templates. This is, I think there's 6 stories that we look at in particular. So you have at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes, because there's 2 different sets of templates. 1, if you're writing a straight romance. 2, but what happens when you're doing romantic suspense of the strong romantic elements? Well, there's a template specifically for that. Or women's fiction often falls into that. Kelly asked, do you have to attend every session live? Nope, don't have to. They have replays again, and the replays are all available, and you're doing the homework on your pacing. So You work during the day, you can do it in the evening or the morning if you're a morning person, and still keep up without a problem. Now, again, there's this online private classroom. So it's all in one place. So just like this Facebook page that we have, that's going to be only for the students, and it'll be private. No other people can get into it. And the stuff is not, as you post, it's not going to go out to other people. We've been having a problem trying to make the current challenge private, but it takes 3, and now they're telling us 5 days. Well, by the time we're in the challenge and close the doors, then we still have, by the end of the challenge, to get the doors all the way closed. So apologies for that. Facebook keeps changing their requirements, but it's going to be a private classroom. And there's quizzes as you go along, just self quizzes. You don't have to turn them in. You don't have to, but it helps you say, am I getting this? Plus these downloadable handouts, and they're handouts, and I really like these. There's a handout on 49 different romance tropes for romance writers with examples of movies or books that show that trope. There are a handout on 5 steps to clarify your character traits. Now, we haven't even gone into character traits in this class, but what that character trait is, a belief or the behavior at the beginning of the story that the behavior doesn't change at the end of the story, but the love interest sees that behavior in a different light by the end. So I also give out 45 examples. Actually, I give out more than that, examples of belief systems, but I do give out 45 examples of belief systems to help jumpstart future stories. And there's also 84 character trait examples. So this is not meant just for the story you're working on. This is meant for your career writing romance or writing romantic elements. So there's a lot of really good stuff in here, including scene and sequel, which is, okay, how do you get in between these 11 templates that we're going to be looking at? Vani, is this 5-day challenge in your bigger class an expansion of your plotting book? It is different than that plotting book. The plotting book that Vani is referencing is the Break into Fiction book. But no, I changed the templates for the romance classes because, and some of the members are in this particular challenge, I and 4 other romance writers worked for 2 years, worked on a movie a month or a movie every other week, romance movie, on romantic comedy, inspirational romance, women's fiction, romantic suspense, romance with strong romantic elements, and tweaked the template questions to make sure that they kept the focus on the romance. And that is all what you benefit from in the templates that we hand out. So it is different. Well, about registering for the class, one point I want to make first, it's yours forever. So once you have it, you have it. Now let me get to the next part. Because you're in the challenge, you get this 20% discount. For example, one of your classmates bought the class yesterday. We're refunding her the class so that she can take advantage of the 20% discount. And it goes until Monday at midnight Pacific Savings Time. So this Monday, just make up. Or if you're having a situation like Lena, just contact us. There are limited seats left for this, but if you want to go in, I'm going to put it in the notes here, if I can remember that. This is the code that you use to get the 20% discount. All right, that's not going to work. Okay, so that ROM shell is what you're going to be looking at for that, to get that discount. Yep. Now let's try this again. Don't go far. All right, I'm hoping that his last push these 27. Okay, good. It did work, honey. I swear I didn't touch anything. So I just wanted to clarify, though, is that it's not just about the structure of the story. It's about how to create those solid, well-motivated characters. And that's what we were starting with the character belief system, because this is what's driving the character or holding the character back. It's how to build your romance on decisions and action taken by these characters. Again, if you see with some of my feedback to people on, particularly on yesterday's homework, I believe, it was one character advocated her story and left it for just the hero in the story to make choices and decisions and move forward. And that's problematic. And it's 4 weeks. So we're not doing this rush, have to be here, got to answer this question. Mary's going to come down on me. It gives you time to really push and push deeper to get into this. So there will be a link that Tech Guy will put on the Facebook page, and he'll also put it in tomorrow morning's homework that can get you to the classroom about to tell you more details. And no, I don't trust it. Okay, stop, go, stay. Now, what happens if I turn this? It's not going to go forward. There. All right, yay. Okay, Marcella was someone who was working in a sci-fi, and she was a great writer. And she got really good feedback, but she couldn't understand why it kept getting rejected by editors and agents, and they don't have time to teach us this stuff. So she called it the one damn thing after another, that episodic approach, that she was just throwing stuff at her characters. So what she did after the class, after her brain cells reactivated again, she went back and revisited the stories that she had written. She'd written a trilogy and rewrote them, making sure her characters were driving the plot, because now she knew what her challenge was. And then what happened to her is she went back to an agent who had been interested in it, sent her the revision. The agent was able to make her a 3-book deal because now she had a solid story. She had great characters before, wonderful dialogue, the setting was amazing. Other people, it's, again, taking the notes, and then you have a question. And when we do something that's very quick, like either a 60-minute class, 90-minute, or even just 5 days, it's gone. And so going back and having that opportunity to keep asking those questions and say, okay, I'm still not clear about this. What can I do? What can I do? And people can be really surprised just what you found out in this 5-day challenge. I probably opened up some I didn't realize I was doing that moments. So giving yourself permission to dig deeper is what the 4-week course is. Now, if you have questions, just let me know. The other thing that I offer for this course that I don't advertise here is that every single person who takes this course we can set up a one-on-one meeting during the class. So during the month of February, and I think it ends at the beginning of March, we set up a one-on-one telephone conversation. So we can talk through your plot or your series or your understanding of scene and sequel, or your understanding of what isn't clear yet. And that alone is worth the price of the class, because any of the big names are charging easily $1,000 to $3,000 just for that piece. So this is an opportunity. I open it up once a year, and that's at this time of year. Now tomorrow, we're going to look at the 5th of the 5 steps we've been studying this week. But I'm also going to give you dates for upcoming courses that complement. There's going to be free challenges, which is like appetizers. So I'll give you the dates for those. There's going to be one on sexual tension, again, 5 or is it 6 weeks on that one, for sexual tension, to learn how to make sure that you have sexual tension on the page and all the stages and how you can make it work. Or a body language course, and that's all about emotion. And then you move forward. And then next fall, there's going to be one of these courses, free challenge beforehand, but one of the courses on fiction other than romance. So mystery, whether it has romantic elements or not, or sci-fi, with or without romantic elements. Bonnie asked, can we work on 2 books or just 1 book in your class? You can work on 2. Doesn't matter to me as long as you're not confusing yourself. So we can do that. This is your course. This is an awkward thing, but we've had sexual tension together, and it was really fun and very illuminating for a lot of people. I think that's the course that's coming up next month. So the challenge will be coming up in the next 2 weeks or so. So I'll give you that information tomorrow. Someone said the one-on-one is the crown jewel of the course. And it is, because how many times do you get to talk to someone? Most of us write 1 or 2, if we're lucky, 3 books a year, but how often do you get to work with someone who's worked with, I mean, in this course alone, you've seen easily 100 books coming together, 100 story structures. And that has been my privilege to work with online, in person, one-on-one, working on story structure. The only thing I really don't work with is horror, simply because I don't read that as much. So this is the information about what's coming forward. We'll be back here tomorrow at noon for our last class together. I'm going to get through as many of the homework assignments as I can, but I will guarantee that I'm missing people, because every day people are posting starting at 1, and I'm already going on to answering the 3rd assignment and the 4th assignment. So in order for me to get through all of them, some people are going to be missed. So I apologize ahead of time, but there's only one of me to go around. Your fellow classmates are giving great feedback, and I hope you take advantage of it. And I appreciate those who are giving feedback on the other courses, and they'll be coming up. So, oh, good, John, asking about how long it'll be before this group and the material in it goes away. Normally, Tech Guy says 2 weeks. So 2 weeks after the course ends on Friday. The truth is, don't tell him. The truth is, it usually is about a month that you have access to it. So, because he can't get to it, he's going to be putting up the next challenge and the next group for sexual tension and setting all of that up. Something else I wanted to tell about sexual tension too is that I'm going to make it private from before the course starts, for the challenge and for the course. But that means that people have to basically ask to get into the course on the links that I'll be sending to people, and then I have to let you in. And that's the only way to keep it as a private group. There's some restrictions. It takes multiple days. Someone's asking, when will we have access to the course? The first week worth of material is available already. And that first week is there's a welcome movies to watch before we start, because again, you don't have to watch all the movies, but by watching them, they're what I'm using as references. There's going to be blank templates.
All 4 weeks are available because of old attendees.
Oh, okay. So Tech Guy tells me all 4 weeks are available the minute you sign up, and he gets you the thing to get into the classroom. There's going to be a video lecture on being a plotter versus a pantser. There's a bonus list of more romance movies. There is a lecture on literary versus commercial fiction, particularly writing women's fiction, that sometimes it's kind of a fine line as to what you're writing there. So a quiz, basically, which level of romance are you writing, so that you can have, is it going to be the template of straight romance? And straight, I don't mean heterosexual. I mean that it is all about the romance. Or if you're doing something with a romantic suspense, it's still mostly about the romance, or a romantic suspense that's suspense with romantic elements. There's different templates for that. So all of that is available just in the pre-work page, but he's saying that all the 5 weeks of material are available. All right, so right from you sign in. And I don't know who asked, will you send us something to get access? But yes, Tech Guy will make sure that you get that material. So thank you for being here. I know this went a little bit long, but wanted to get that information. So there is literally 5 weeks of material right from the beginning that you can get into, but each week will be broken down. And if they don't need romance plotting, if you want to see what's the difference, it's a different series of templates for each of the 11 stages and the 2 character templates, and that's happening next fall. And yes, you can sign in now for that. There's 2 ways to pay, monthly or a lump sum. So you can set it up, trying to make it affordable and work for folks for every reason. So if you have any other questions, get a hold of me at marybuckham.com, and I'll be glad to answer them. And I appreciate you hanging around and signing up. Jade, go ahead and send me that private email, would you, to pick some days, particularly next week on, that we can look at doing our 1-on-1 from our previous, because you've taken the courses before. So appreciate everybody here and everybody that is working so hard. So I'll see you when I get back online to start answering more homework, and I will see you tomorrow. So take care. Thank you.